wanted to do, namely make war on Iraq, and that they decided to do that shortly after 9/11. And my former colleague, Paul Pillar, who was the most senior national intelligence officer for the Middle East and for counterterrorism, when he says, as he did just yesterday, that there was an organized campaign of manipulation of the intelligence to prove a tie between Iraq and al-Qaeda, the objective, of course, to make the American people think that Saddam Hussein has something to do with 9/11. When Pilar comes out with that information, then I think we need to make sure the American people know that we knew at that time there was no such tie.
He didn't answer or respond to the bulletproof question at first. You asked basically, you reiterated the bulletproof and said, you know, that he'd indicate there was bulletproof evidence of a link between al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein's government. He then came back to it, though, and said, well, it's a fact that Zarqawi was in Iraq, and you pointed out that he, well, what did you say then?
Well, you know, I was so glad that he disingenuously offered that, because Zarqawi was not under any al-Qaeda or Saddam Hussein control. He was in the northern part of Iraq where no one held sway, not Saddam Hussein, certainly not al-Qaeda. And so to adduce Zarqawi as a link with al-Qaeda was disingenuous.
He did then go on to say, well, he was also in Baghdad, and you pointed out, yeah, when he went to the hospital.
Yeah, right. Baghdad was where the best hospital was when he needed treatment. See, Rumsfeld is above the fray, and he believes that the audience, and most of the audience there today, of course, fits this mold. They won't question him on these things. Who knows these details? Well, we know them. Why? Because it was our profession to follow such details. And we used to be able to apply our techniques and our tradecraft to foreign leaders. And it's ironic in the extreme that we need to do media analysis and leadership studies on our own leaders to find out whether they're telling the truth or they're telling lies.
How can you prove, though, a lie? I mean, you're alleging an intent to mislead, a belief that they knew there was no MWMD, that they knew Saddam wasn't really an imminent threat, and they chose to go to war anyway, and they faked, they manipulated, they handpicked intelligence. Others will argue, you know, maybe they believed they had it, and so they looked for the intelligence that matched their belief, but that they actually did believe it.
We have the minutes of his discussions with Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister, on the 31st of January 2003, where the President says there really aren't any weapons of mass destruction to be found, but we need some way to make this war. Maybe, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll paint one of our U-2s with UN colors and hope that it gets shot down. Or maybe we'll get a defector out that will attest to the presence of weapons of mass destruction. Or there's an outside chance we can just assassinate Saddam Hussein. That's on the record. The British vouch for that. We also have the Downing Street memos, where the head of British intelligence came back from consultations with George Tenet in July of 2002 and said, the intelligence and the facts are being fixed around the policy. The evidence on ties between Saddam Hussein and 9/11. Okay, that's what we're really talking about. 69% of the American people believed that Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11 when we went to war with Iraq. That was exactly what the administration wanted.
And that was Ray McGovern, the man who confronted Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld today. Coming up, he's the most wanted man in